Have you ever been in a conversation where you suddenly feel your heart racing, your voice tightening, and before you even realize it, you've said something you wish you could take back? That moment isn't random. It's your brain being hijacked, and not by the other person, but by your own emotions. See, when a conversation turns highly emotional, your brain stops focusing on what's being said and starts focusing on survival. You're not listening to understand anymore. You're listening to defend, to protect, to survive the feeling of being attacked or misunderstood. And that's when communication completely breaks down. Here's what actually happens in that moment. When someone says something that triggers you, maybe it feels disrespectful, unfair, or just too harsh, your brain sends a signal straight to your amygdala, the emotional control center. And the amygdala doesn't care about reason. It cares about one thing: safety. It floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol, preparing you to fight, flee, or freeze. That's why your chest feels tight, your thoughts start racing, and your ability to think clearly disappears. It's not that you've lost intelligence, it's that your body has shifted into defense mode. You can't connect logically when your nervous system believes you're under attack. But here's the trap most of us fall into. We confuse emotional intensity with control. You think, if I speak louder, I'll finally be heard. If I explain harder, they'll finally get it. But the truth is, the louder you get, the less effective you become. Because the brain on the other side of that argument is also in the same hijacked state. They're not hearing your words, they're reacting to your tone, your energy, your tension. And now, both people are fighting for control in a conversation where no one's actually in control. So the first step in handling a highly emotional conversation isn't saying the right thing. It's recognizing that you're not thinking straight. You can't respond rationally from an emotional brain. You have to know when you've been pulled out of logic and into reaction. Jefferson Fisher often says, awareness is the reset button, because when you can notice your emotional state in real time, when you can say, okay, my body's in fight mode right now, that's when you start taking your power back. That awareness gives you space. And in that space, you have a choice: react or respond. Think about it. How many conversations have you walked away from thinking, I wish I'd handled that differently? That regret usually comes from reacting while your brain was hijacked. You weren't thinking about what you wanted long term. You were just trying to protect yourself in the short term. And that's what emotional hijack does. It makes you trade peace for pride, understanding for control. But when you become aware of that switch happening, you start to realize you don't have to go down that road. You can feel the emotion without letting it lead the conversation. Here's the truth: most people miss emotions aren't bad. They're signals, not commands. Anger means you care about something deeply. Frustration means something feels unfair. Sadness means something matters to you. But when you let those signals take over the entire message, your words lose their power. People stop hearing your truth because it's buried under your tone. So when you start to feel your body tighten, your thoughts scatter, that's your cue. That's the sign that your emotional brain is taking the wheel. Don't fight it, just notice it, because noticing it gives you back control faster than pretending you're calm when you're not. In a highly emotional conversation, control doesn't come from being louder, smarter, or faster. It comes from being aware, from recognizing when your nervous system has taken over and gently bringing yourself back to center. Because until you calm your body, you can't calm the conversation. Every word that comes out of your mouth after that will either escalate or de-escalate what happens next. And that choice starts the moment you realize your brain is reacting instead of reasoning. In every heated conversation, there's a split second, a tiny moment between what was said to you and what you choose to say back. That moment, as small as it feels, is the difference between clarity and chaos. It's the pause. The pause isn't weakness. It isn't silence that means surrender. It's power. It's you choosing to respond from control instead of reaction. Most people skip it because it feels uncomfortable. They mistake fast responses for strength. But Jefferson Fisher reminds us that real strength doesn't rush to protect ego, it pauses to protect peace. Imagine someone says something that hits you wrong. Maybe they question your integrity, criticize your effort, or accuse you of something unfair. The first instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to justify, to push back, because that's what the brain does when it feels attacked. But here's the catch: the faster you defend, the less they hear you. Emotionally charged conversations move fast because no one's stopping long enough to think. The words fly, the tone sharpens, and both people start fighting ghosts of misunderstanding instead of the real issue. The pause is what stops that spiral. It's the reset button in real time. The pause might look like taking a slow breath. It might sound like saying, give me a second to think about that. It might even just be silence. But that silence is louder than any argument. It says, I'm not going to let your tone decide mine. It says, I hear what you said, but I'm not letting my emotions run this conversation. Because when you pause, you're not ignoring the moment, you're owning it. You're creating space for the adult in you to show up before the ego does. Think about how most arguments unfold. One person throws a jab, the other fires back instantly. Now both are reacting, neither is listening, and the conversation becomes a loop of emotional noise. But the one who pauses, they control the pace, they hold the frame. The pause doesn't mean you're speechless. It means you're smart enough to not let adrenaline write your script. You're slowing down so you can choose words that move the conversation forward instead of words that burn it down. Here's something powerful: the pause also protects your clarity. When emotions surge, your perspective narrows. You stop seeing the bigger picture and only see the threat. But when you pause, your brain has time to bring logic back online. You start noticing what's really being said instead of what it feels like they're saying. You catch details, tone shifts, and subtext that you'd completely miss if you were in fight mode. That's how you turn an emotional moment into a productive one, not by winning fast, but by thinking clearly. Jefferson often says, the pause is your proof of control. Because anyone can talk fast, anyone can interrupt, anyone can react, but it takes emotional discipline to stop mid, trigger, and breathe. The pause is what separates emotionally intelligent people from reactive ones. It's the invisible boundary that says, I decide when and how I respond. When you pause, you take back control of your nervous system. You lower your heart rate. You calm your body, which calms your tone. And when your tone is calm, the other person subconsciously starts to mirror it. That's how you lead a conversation without force, through emotional composure. Most people think control in a conversation means overpowering the other person. It doesn't. It means staying calm enough that they can't overpower you. The pause protects you from saying things that betray your values. It protects the relationship from damage that can't be undone. And most importantly, it protects your peace. Because when you respond too quickly, you often say things you didn't mean. And once they're out, you can't take them back. The pause makes sure your words match your intentions, not your impulse. The pause is small, but it changes everything. It's the moment that gives you your power back, not by reacting first, but by thinking first. It's the decision to slow down when everything in you wants to speed up, because that's what emotional strength really looks like. Not quick reactions, but thoughtful restraint. When someone raises their voice, your body instantly reacts. Your chest tightens, your pulse quickens, and a part of you feels that urge to match their energy. It's almost instinctual. They get louder, you get louder. They lean in, you lean in. It's the unspoken rhythm of conflict. But that rhythm is exactly what keeps arguments alive, because when you meet fire with fire, you don't burn brighter, you both burn out. The power isn't in matching their energy, it's in grounding it. Calm isn't weakness, it's control in its purest form. Jefferson Fisher calls it emotional leadership. And emotional leadership means you decide the emotional temperature of the conversation, not them. When someone is angry, frustrated, or losing control, you have two options: follow their chaos or lead with composure. Think about it. You've never seen a shouting match where one person suddenly yells, "You're right, I feel calm now." No one ever wins that way. When tension rises, logic disappears. But when calm enters the room, it changes everything. Matching someone's calm energy when they're already calm, that's easy. But matching calm when they're losing control, that's mastery. Because your calm doesn't just affect you, it regulates the entire environment. Humans naturally mirror what they feel, so when you stay steady while someone else is spiraling, you become the emotional anchor. Your tone, your breathing, your pace, they all communicate something far louder than words. I'm in control of me. Now, let's be clear, staying calm doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or pretending you're okay with chaos. It means you refuse to give your peace away just because someone else has lost theirs. You can stand firm without being furious. You can be assertive without being aggressive. That's what emotional maturity looks like, strength with composure. It's the ability to say, I'm not matching your volume, I'm controlling mine. When someone's yelling or emotionally charged, they expect resistance. They expect you to fight back. But when you don't, when you stay grounded, keep your voice low and respond with intention, it confuses the pattern. It disrupts the cycle of escalation because conflict thrives on reaction. And when there's no reaction, it loses fuel. Suddenly, the person who was shouting starts to feel the weight of their own energy. They start to notice their tone. They start to realize they're the only one yelling. That's when they begin to self-regulate. Not because you forced them to, but because you modeled it. Calm is contagious. It's not dramatic, but it's powerful. It shifts the focus of the conversation from emotion to reason. When you stay calm, it doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're leading from the higher ground. You're saying, this conversation will not control me. I will control how I show up in it. And that presence commands respect. People might not admit it in the moment, but they feel it. They remember the one who stayed steady when everyone else lost control. But here's the thing, staying calm doesn't come naturally when you're triggered. It's a skill. You train it by practicing awareness in small moments. The next time someone cuts you off mid-sentence or uses a tone you don't like, notice the spark inside you that wants to fight back. Feel it, but don't feed it. Take a slow breath, speak slower than you feel. Because calm speech slows the nervous system, both yours and theirs. It's not just emotional, it's physiological. Your body teaches your mind to stay grounded. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in an emotional conversation is lower your voice when theirs rises. Not to manipulate, but to reset the energy. You're teaching the other person what control looks like. Because most people don't calm down when you tell them to calm down. They calm down when you show them calm. That's influence. That's emotional authority, and it's what separates those who react from those who lead. Matching calm for fire isn't natural. It's intentional. But every time you do it, you strengthen your ability to lead through emotion instead of being led by it. Because the truth is, anyone can yell, anyone can react, but it takes someone emotionally powerful to stay still when everything around them is trying to pull them into chaos. When emotions rise in a conversation, most people stop listening. They think they're hearing the other person, but really, they're just waiting for their turn to talk. They're crafting their comeback while the other person is still speaking. That's not listening, that's defending. And that's exactly how emotional conversations break apart. Jefferson Fisher says it best, people calm down when they feel heard, not when they're told to calm down. Listening to understand isn't about agreeing, it's about giving the other person psychological oxygen. The space to feel acknowledged, even when you disagree with every word they say. Here's the truth. When someone is emotional, they don't want a solution first. They want validation, they want to know you're not ignoring how they feel. Think about it. When you're upset, do you want advice? Or do you want someone to actually listen to you? When you're misunderstood, do you calm down when someone tells you you're wrong? No. You calm down when someone says, I get why you'd feel that way. That moment, that recognition, is where the wall starts to come down. Because emotions don't dissolve under logic. They dissolve under understanding. But most of us are trained to argue, not to listen. We jump in to explain, to fix, to prove our point. We don't realize that in doing that, we're actually pouring fuel on their frustration. You might be saying all the right words, but if they don't feel heard, it doesn't matter. The conversation keeps looping because both people are defending their version of truth instead of exploring what's underneath it. Listening to understand means putting your ego on hold. It means letting go of the need to be right so you can focus on what's real. Listening is not silent waiting, it's active awareness. It's asking yourself, what is this person really trying to say beneath their tone? Because emotional language is rarely direct. When someone says, you never listen to me, they don't mean never. They mean, I feel invisible right now. When they say, you don't care, they mean, I don't feel safe with you in this moment. Emotional conversations are layered. If you only hear the words, you miss the meaning. But when you listen beyond the surface, you start connecting instead of clashing. Jefferson teaches that emotional understanding begins with curiosity, not correction. When someone raises their voice or becomes defensive, you can either mirror their energy or get curious. You can say, it sounds like this really matters to you. Help me understand what's upsetting you. That one line can transform an argument into a dialogue. Because now, instead of feeling like they're fighting against you, they feel like you're trying to figure it out with them. And when that happens, tension loses its power. Listening to understand also requires presence. You can't do it if your mind is rehearsing responses or keeping score. You have to be fully there, in your tone, your eyes, your posture. People can sense when you're just waiting to respond, but they can also sense when you're genuinely trying to get it. And that feeling disarms them. Because suddenly, they don't have to yell to be heard. They start softening. The conversation slows down. That's the power of presence. The truth is, you don't lose arguments by listening. You actually gain influence. When people feel understood, they're more likely to listen back. You're not giving up control, you're creating connection. And connection is what brings logic back into an emotional conversation. You can't reason with someone who feels dismissed. But the moment they feel seen, they open up to reason again. Listening is the bridge that carries both people out of reaction and into resolution. It's easy to listen when you agree. The challenge is listening when you don't. But that's where growth happens. That's where emotional maturity is built, in the moments where you resist the urge to correct and choose to understand instead. Because understanding doesn't mean agreement. It means respect. It means I value you enough to hear you fully, even when I see it differently. And when people feel that level of respect, even in disagreement, the emotional charge starts to fade, the walls lower, the tone shifts. What was once a fight becomes a real conversation. Listening to understand isn't about giving in, it's about giving space for emotion, space for clarity, and space for humanity. Because at the end of every heated exchange, that's what people are really searching for, not to win, but to feel heard. When a conversation gets emotional, what you say next can either throw gasoline on the fire or pour water on it. And sometimes, All it takes is one phrase, one small sentence, to completely change the direction of the moment. Words have power, but not because they're fancy or clever. The most powerful words in tense conversations are the ones that make people feel safe enough to stop fighting. Jefferson Fisher teaches that simple language can diffuse complex emotion. It's not about sounding smart, it's about sounding human. Think about it: when someone's upset, they're not in a logical mindset. They're emotional, defensive, and ready to argue. Logic doesn't work in that space. Empathy does. That's where disarming phrases come in. Phrases like, "I can see you're frustrated," or "It sounds like this really matters to you," signal that you're not here to battle, you're here to understand. And that subtle shift from confrontation to connection changes everything, because people don't calm down when they feel controlled. They calm down when they feel heard. But here's the mistake most people make: they over-explain. They think if they just clarify their point enough times, the other person will finally understand. Yet the harder you push your point, the harder they push back. The secret isn't more words, it's the right words. Jefferson often says, "Short sentences calm long arguments." The right phrase, delivered calmly, cuts through chaos faster than any long explanation ever could. For example, when someone's angry, instead of saying, "You need to calm down," try saying, "I can tell this really hit a nerve." That one line acknowledges the emotion without judging it. It shows emotional awareness instead of authority, and that makes the other person feel seen, not silenced. Another powerful one: "I want to understand what's really bothering you." That doesn't sound defensive, it sounds curious. It shifts the tone from attack to dialogue. Here's why these simple phrases work. They speak directly to the emotional brain. When people feel emotional, they stop hearing reasoning and start listening for tone. Your calm words signal safety. Your empathy signals understanding. It's a psychological pattern interrupt. Suddenly, their brain realizes this isn't a fight, it's a chance to be heard. And in that space, tension loses its grip. Now, let's be clear, using disarming phrases isn't manipulation. It's emotional intelligence. It's how you keep the conversation human when it's starting to turn hostile. You're not trying to control the other person, you're managing the atmosphere. You're choosing language that opens the door instead of slamming it shut. Because the moment you choose empathy over ego, you change the entire energy of the room. Sometimes, it's not even what you say, it's how you say it. Your tone can carry more peace than your words ever could. Saying, "I hear you," softly can have more impact than a 5-minute speech. Because tone communicates intent. If your voice stays calm, steady, and warm, your words start to land differently. The person across from you starts matching your energy. They slow down, they start breathing again. You've just led the conversation out of chaos without ever raising your voice. In emotional moments, simplicity is your greatest strength. The more intense the emotion, the simpler your language should be. Complexity confuses the emotional brain. Simplicity calms it. So instead of saying, "You're misunderstanding my point," say, "Let me say that again more clearly." Instead of saying, "You're overreacting," try, "I can tell this really got to you." You're validating emotion without agreeing with the reaction. That's the balance. Empathy without surrender. Here's something to remember. Emotional control doesn't mean emotional silence. It means emotional awareness. You're using your words as tools, not weapons. The right phrase can stop defensiveness before it starts. It can turn criticism into clarity. It can make someone who was shouting feel safe enough to actually talk. You don't need to win the moment with arguments. You win it with emotional precision. And the truth is, most conflicts aren't about the words being said. They're about how those words make people feel. If you can make someone feel understood, you've already diffused half the tension. You don't need to overpower emotion, you just need to guide it. And the most powerful way to do that is through small, intentional, emotionally aware phrases that remind people you're not their opponent, you're their partner in understanding. When a conversation gets emotionally charged, it often feels like everything starts moving at lightning speed. Voices rise, heartbeats race, thoughts spin faster than words can catch them. You can almost feel the air tightening between you and the other person. That's what emotional acceleration looks like, when logic can't keep up with the pace of emotion. And in that moment, the key to regaining control isn't to speak louder, argue harder, or react faster. It's to slow everything down. Jefferson Fisher often says, "Control lives in the pause." It's not silence for the sake of silence, it's strategy. When you slow the pace of an emotional conversation, you don't lose control of it. You take it back, because when emotions are high, words become weapons. But when you slow down, those same words turn into instruments of understanding. You're no longer just reacting, you're responding with intention. Imagine this: someone's voice is rising, they're throwing accusations, and your body starts to respond. You feel the tension in your chest, the urge to interrupt, the need to defend yourself. That's your nervous system getting pulled into their rhythm. They're speeding up, and without realizing it, you're matching their tempo. That's how emotional escalation works. One person's speed controls the others. But the moment you take a breath, the moment you choose to slow your tone, your pace, and your body language, you shift the entire tempo of the interaction. Here's the truth. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't feed. When you slow down, you starve chaos of its fuel. Your calmness becomes contagious. The human brain naturally mirrors what it sees. When you start speaking slowly and calmly, their brain begins to sync with your rhythm. The shouting fades, the tension softens, and logic quietly steps back into the room. Think about it like this: in any emotional storm, the calmest person has the most power. Not because they dominate, but because they refuse to be swept away. When you control your pace, you anchor the conversation. You become the grounding point the other person didn't realize they needed. That's emotional leadership, not dominance, but stability. And it's often the only thing that saves a spiraling conversation from turning into permanent damage. Slowing down starts internally. Before you try to calm them, you calm yourself. Jefferson often recommends what he calls the 3-second reset. When you feel that emotional pull, stop. Take a breath in, count to 3, then speak. Those 3 seconds aren't wasted time, they're your control window. That pause tells your brain, I'm safe, I'm in control. And when your brain believes that, your voice naturally follows. You speak softer, slower, clearer, and that tone does more to de-escalate than any argument could. It's not just about words, it's about energy. People don't only listen to what you say, they feel what you say. When your pace is frantic, it tells them they need to keep defending. When your pace is steady, it tells them they can stop fighting. That's the unspoken language of calm. The way your breath, your pauses, your timing all communicate that this moment doesn't have to be war. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think if they slow down, they'll lose the upper hand. But the opposite is true. When you slow your pace, you force the conversation to meet you at your level. You're no longer chasing emotional chaos, you're setting the tone. You're teaching the other person, without ever saying it, that calm is the standard here, and they usually follow, even if they don't realize it. This is especially powerful in situations where emotions are running wild, arguments with loved ones, tense discussions at work, or heated debates where everyone's trying to be right. Instead of saying, calm down, you demonstrate calm. Instead of saying, let's not yell, you lower your own voice. You're modeling emotional regulation, and the energy of that is magnetic. It doesn't happen instantly, but it happens reliably. Another layer of slowing down is pacing your words with empathy. Instead of quick rebuttals, use reflective pauses. Let their words sit for a second before you respond. That silence communicates that you actually heard them, not just waited for your turn to talk. And that small act of patience changes everything. Because in most arguments, people aren't looking for agreement first. They're looking for acknowledgement. When you pause, they feel acknowledged. When you rush, they feel dismissed. Even your physical body plays a role. Relaxed posture, slower gestures, steady breathing. Those things don't just make you look calm, they make you calm. Your body tells your brain how to feel. And when you slow your movements, you're sending a signal to your mind. This is not an emergency. That's how you pull yourself out of emotional autopilot and back into control. In an emotionally charged moment, slowing the pace isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's how you take a conversation that's spinning out of control and bring it back into balance. You're not just managing the moment, you're mastering it. You're teaching through your composure that emotions don't have to dictate outcomes. You're reminding both yourself and the other person that calm isn't passive, it's powerful. And when you practice this enough, it becomes instinct. You stop reacting to every spark and start noticing the fire before it spreads. You stop matching someone's chaos and start leading them toward clarity. That's what slowing the pace does. It turns emotion into understanding, conflict into connection, noise into dialogue. When emotions take over a conversation, most people believe they have only two options: fight or flee. They either argue louder, trying to win, or shut down completely, trying to escape. But the real power lies in neither. The real power is in awareness, in slowing down, in staying calm enough to see what's actually happening beneath the surface. Because emotional conversations aren't really about who's right. They're about who can stay grounded long enough to find what's true. Throughout this entire message, Jefferson Fisher reminds us that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about channeling them. You're not meant to become a robot, you're meant to become intentional. When you start recognizing emotional triggers, you stop letting them pull you like strings. When you choose to listen rather than react, you start turning confrontation into understanding. And when you master the pause, that sacred space between what happens and how you respond, you begin to communicate with clarity even when chaos surrounds you. The power of this message is simple but life-changing. Calm is not weakness. Calm is confidence. It's the language of people who refuse to be dragged down to the level of chaos. It's what separates those who lead conversations from those who lose them. Because no one ever regrets being calm, but everyone regrets what they say when they aren't. So, When a conversation starts spiraling, when voices rise, emotions boil, and logic disappears, remember this: you don't have to match their heat to be heard. You don't have to win the noise to win the moment. You just have to slow down, breathe, and speak from the space between reaction and reason. That's where your strength lives. Every emotional conversation gives you a choice: to escalate or to elevate. One leads to regret, the other leads to growth, and the person who learns to stay calm in the storm doesn't just communicate better, they live better.